Today we are going to discuss calculations in Access. We're going to look at calculated fields in tables and queries, calculations with numbers, calculations with dates, calculations with aggregated functions. We're going to look at calculated fields in reports, calculations for each record, calculations on groups of records. All right, let's dive right in. The ability to produce information accurately and quickly can mean the difference between success and failure for a business. You are already familiar with the query and reporting facilities of a database. In this module, you're going to discover how to perform all sorts of calculations and queries, inquiries and reports. Calculated fields in tables and queries. We use queries to extract records from a database table that meets certain specified criteria. Apart from using the existing fields, we can also create in a query temporary fields which can contain calculations. Calculations with numbers. Consider the following extract from a database table called plants. So we have a general name, scientific name, the purchase price, the selling price, and whether or not they're in stock. By using a query, we can display the fields general name, purchase price, and selling price of all records. We can then create in a query an additional field to be called, say, profit, to create the profit on each plant. All right, so that's what the front end of the query, the query would look like. So we have a general name that we've pulled across into the query, the purchase price and the selling price, and we've created a new field called profit. All right, so how do we do this? In design view, the query looks like this. So we've got our three names that we pull across, and we've created a new one. All right, so when creating a new field in a query, you start off by typing in the name. Then it's your colon, and then you do your calculations that you want to do. Now, when working with the different fields, in this case, the selling price and the purchase price, selling price minus the purchase price, you need to put the field name inside of square brackets. And the spelling needs to be precisely as the field name is. Otherwise, it'll throw you an error. All right, so let's have a look at this. The profit. Profit is the same name of the new calculated field and is not part of the original table. So if we go back up, you'll see that the original table did not have that in there. It is a temporary field that exists only in the query. The name of the temporary field is always followed by a colon. Selling price minus purchase price is a calculation that you designed yourself using the existing fields selling price and purchase price. Each existing field's name is placed in a set of square brackets. So let's go and have a look at that. Let's go to our Access. All right, and here is my table with my plants in there. All right, and let's go and create a query. So I'm going to close off my table, make sure that my plants table is highlighted. It just makes it a lot easier. We're going to go to create, query wizard. We're going to do a simple query wizard for this example. We're going to go, okay, what do we want to move across? We want to move across the ID, the general name, the purchase price, and the selling price. Right, we don't need the scientific name, we don't need the in stock at this moment. If you want to, you can even leave out the ID. I just like to carry it across, so I have my references there. All right, let's go next. Would you like to detail a detail or summary query? Well, we want a detailed query, okay, which shows every field of every record because we're going to be doing a calculation and we want to be able to see them all. So go next. What are we going to call our query? Well, we'll leave it as plants query for now. You can name it whatever you want. All right, that's all the information the wizard needs to create your query. Do you want to open the query or modify the query's design? Well, we want to modify it because we want to add in that extra field. So we're going to go to modify, click on finish. All right, so there we go. Here's the original table where the information came from. Here's my query at the moment. Now you can, if you look to the front, let's run it. You'll see that the ID is there, the general name, the purchase price, the selling price. Go back to design view. Let's say we just want to switch off the ID so that we don't need to see it. Okay, so there we go. But it's still there in the background. Now we need to create our new field. So next to selling price, the next column, we're going to type in profit, colon, space. Then open our square brackets. And we want to do the selling price minus the purchase price. So selling price has to be spelled exactly as is. Selling price. And remember, Access is case sensitive when working with your field names. Close off your square brackets. Put in your operator. In this case, it's the minus. Open your square brackets again for the next field, and that is purchase price. Purchase price. Let's close it off and tab. All right, so there it is. Let's just expand this so you can see this nicely. Here we go. We've got profit, colon, space, selling price minus purchase price. Double check that your spelling is correct according to your fields. When you're happy, save. Very, very important to save your Access databases on a regular basis, and then run. Why did we go to run? It's to check for any errors. And there we go. So I got my purchase price, my selling price, my profit, and this is how much I'm making off of each of them. I just want to show you what would happen if you were to have typed in something incorrectly. So let's take the purchase price. Let's take out purchase. Let's save it and let's run it now. Now, it does not recognize price. It's asking for the parameters for that. That is how you know that you have made a spelling mistake somewhere. All right, and you can go look for that one, price. So I can see that is my second section over here. So cancel that, go back in and correct the mistake. Purchase. There we go. Save and run. And there's working again. All right, so that is a quick way to add in a new field with a calculation inside of your query. Moving along. Just a quick little note. If you right-click in Design View on a numeric field and choose Properties, you can specify the format of the field. As with Excel, this format will determine how the value is displayed, but will not change the stored value. If you enter the name of an existing field different to the way it appears in the underlying table, example, if you make a spelling mistake or a spacing mistake in the field name, the following dialog box will appear. All right, so let's go back to that and let's see if we can change the display. Okay, so let's go back to our query. Let's open that up. Let's go back into our design view. All right, and let's see what they say that we have to do over here. All right, so right click in design view on a numeric field and choose properties. So let's go to this field over here and let's right click, go down to properties. All right, and there's my properties over there. And over here, my format, come to that and I can choose currency. There we go. Close off my properties field, save, run, and now it's in currency over there. All right. And you got a couple activities over here. Just a little note on the right hand side. Mathematical operators, plus, minus, multiply, and divide, and brackets in calculated fields are used similarly to the way they are used in formulas in Excel. So you can still put everything inside of normal brackets. Just remember that when using your field names, they go inside of square brackets. All right, here's another little note on the side over here. Calculated fields can sometimes be very long. To make the formula completely visible, you can drag the column wider in design view, or you can right click on the column and select the zoom option. All right, so I showed you earlier how I drag that out. All right, functions can also be used in calculations. Here are two mathematical functions that change the stored value of a calculated field, not just the way the value is displayed. So there's round, so test mark, then we still use the function round, Now, note that in Access, we are creating a field name, all right, and then carrying on with the function and its arguments. There is no equal sign in that. So that is where it differs from Excel. We have our normal brackets, open and closing. We have our field names in between, so that's your mark and your test total, with our operator in between, divided by, and we have a multiply by 100, and we round it off to 2 decimal places over there. So the result of this example is a decimal number rounded to 2 decimal places. Int, another function name that we can use, again, test mark, int, test mark divided by test total times 100. The result is an integer value. The decimal part of the value in the brackets is just removed. For example, integer 77.3 is 77, and integer 77.9 is also 77. So your integer is your whole numbers. All it does is it simply removes your decimal places. It cannot round up or down for you. So be careful when using that. Carrying on, we got calculations with dates next. So we can do calculations on date fields to supply additional information in a report. The table animals in the database Animal Rescue Center contains 2 date time fields called date rescued and date adopted. This is an extract from this table. So I've created a small extract like this to demonstrate with. Examine the following new calculated fields that use these date fields, and that may appear in a query based on the table animals. So num days is the field name, and the calculation is date adopted minus date rescued. So the calculation determines the number of days between the 2 dates, later date minus earlier date. The data type of the new field will be number. Num months, okay, so you'll see that that is now inside of brackets, so that we can calculate the date adopted minus the date rescued first, and then we divide that by 365 and we times that by 12. The calculation determines the number of months between 2 dates. Note, because not all months contain the same number of days, the number of years is calculated first and then multiplied by 12. All right, so that's just a little note that you need to keep in mind when you're working out the months. All right, so let's go and have a look at these first. So we're going to do num days. First, we need to create a query from our table, and we need to bring in, okay, let's bring in everything, and then I'll just show you how to do the calculations for those. So let's go back to this over here. Access data sheet. Here's our animals. So there's the little extract. All right, everything's in place. And while that's highlighted, we come up to create wizard query. Again, we're just going to stick with a simple wizard query. I'm going to pull everything across this time into my query. Next, and choose your name that you want. I'm going to leave it as animals query for this example. And again, I want to modify my design first and say finish. All right, so there's everything that's been carried across over here. So our first one that we want to look at is num days, date adopted minus date rescued. All right, so let's go to our next field. We type in there num days. Another note to keep in mind is that when you're creating fields, they need to be one word. All right, so I can either have it num days like that, or I can have it num underscore days, as long as it's one word. You cannot put spaces in between. So I'm going to go with this because it's just a little bit shorter. Colon, space. If you want to work out date adopted minus date rescued. All right, so open square brackets, date adopted, close it off, minus, no, here's my minus, open my square brackets again, date underscore rescued. The reason why I'm putting the underscore in is because that is how my fields are set up at the moment. All right, and tab. All right, I'm missing something over here. So let's expand this a little bit. And let's go have a look at the end over here. So date. Okay, I put the wrong bracket in over there. So the square bracket. All right, and tab. Let's save and run. And there we go. There's the number of days. Okay, moving on to the next calculation. We want the months. Remember, we've got the normal brackets and we've got the square brackets over here. And then divided by 365 and times it by 12. So what's this called? Months. So let's do this as well. Months, colon. Start off with the normal bracket because we want to calculate these two first and then do the rest of the calculations. Square bracket, and it's date underscore adopted, close square bracket, minus, open square bracket again, date underscore rescued, close the square bracket, make sure I do the right one, close my normal brackets, my round brackets, right? Then we carry on with the rest of the calculation, divided by 365, all right, and times that by 12. So the order of operations, PEMDAS, we'll first go and have a look at the brackets, do the calculation inside that, then it'll do multiplication or division, whichever comes first. So it'll take that answer, it'll divide it by 365, and then it'll times it by 12. Please enter tab. All right, it's not throwing up any errors at the moment. Let's save, and let's run it. All right, so there you can see that it is rather large over there at the moment. So if I wanted to, I could go and put in the round function as well. So let's have a look at the round function. Let's go a little bit up. All right, we can put in the round function over there. So let's see if we can do it on the side and if it'll work. So 9 months, and let's say round, open brackets, normal brackets, and then go all the way to the end and close off the brackets because we want to encase everything in the round. Tab, save, run, see if that worked. There we go. Now, I did not give any decimal places over there. So if I wanted to do decimal places, I would have to go back to my design, go back to my 8, to my round. Okay. And yeah, after the 12, put in semicolon. And if I want 2 decimal places, I would put in the 2. Let's tab, and it's not allowing me that some other reason. Let's see where I went wrong. Okay, it's a comma, not semicolon. So let's change that to comma. As you can see, Access is nice and it shows you where your errors are. Let's go tab again. Okay, it seems to be accepting it. Save, run. Okay, it's still not giving me my 2 decimal places, but it's giving me my months over there. Right, so there's no decimal places for that. So that was not required in this example, but that is how you would put in decimal places in other instances. All right, so we've got that. Let's close off this query and let's carry on. That's my dates, num months. Right, here's a couple other date functions that can be used to manipulate date and time fields. I'm not going to do demonstrations, I'm just going to read through them. So if you want the date, example is your field name, years since date 1. You'd have your date, the specified date, minus date 1. Now your date 1 is a field name, as you can see over there. Divide that by 365, and that will give you a decimal value. Year, age of this year, so year, then open date. So this will give this date with the open and close brackets will give today's date. So year, date, today, minus year, and then birth date. That is a field that you put in where you put your birth date in there. And this calculates how old a person will be in the current year. Month, so number of the month. So you put in month and then the birth date. And a value from 1 to 12 will be returned. So if your birthday is in January, you'll have 1. If your birthday is in August, it'll be an 8. If it's in October, 10. You get the idea there. Month name, name of month. So that's month name that you put in there. Month, and then your birth date. Right, so you see that you're using month name and month over there. And that'll be your birth date. A string text is returned, for example, January, February, March, whichever month of the year it is. Then we have day, number of day. So it's day, and then again, using your birth date, and a whole number from 1 to 31 will be returned. So that's the day of the month that you were born, 16th, 20th, whatever it might be over there. All right. So these are just functions that you have to go and basically memorize and study so that you understand them over there. Most of them are quite straightforward, except for the name of month, where you got your month name and your month inside, because it needs to go and calculate 1 to 12 from the birth date, and then it needs to convert it into string text over there. All right, just so you understand why you're using both of those. On the right hand side, date functions can also be used in a validation rule. For example, year, uh, open brackets, square brackets, entry date, close square brackets, close brackets, greater than 2018. All right, so that is basically saying that you cannot put any date in that is 2018 or less. So your date would start from the 1st of January 2019 and work upwards. Alrighty, a couple more notes on the right hand side. If you must format a result or display it in a certain way, use the property sheet. If the instruction requires you to round a value, use the round function. Yeah. A calculated field can be used in another calculated field in the same query. All right, so what they say in there is that if I go back to my queries, come to my animal queries, just go back to my design view. So I have created these 2 new fields. These are called calculated fields because I've got calculations within them. I can also go and create a new one where I can, again, when putting it inside the brackets, I would now use this num days as the field name or num months as the field name. Whoops. All right. So a calculated field can be used in another calculated field. Hope that makes sense to you. All right. Let's close that off. Moving along. Calculations with aggregate functions. In the visual arts database, there are many records for each school. Each record indicates an amount for an artwork. You can create a query to add up the amounts for each school and display the total amount per school. So I've just gone and created a simple extract using this information over here to demonstrate with. So the sum function is used to add the prices for each school. So what you're doing is you're bringing across the school and the price. Okay, and then you're going to group it by the schools so that you can get the total per school over there. Okay, this is done by using an aggregate function in a query. You can use the sum function to add, group together the prices for each school and to calculate their sum. When the query is created, 2 fields must be selected. The field according to which the records for the calculation must be grouped. In the visual arts example, it is the school field, and the field to be used in the calculation, which is the price field. Right, before we go any further, let's go to that. So here's my visual arts over there. There's my little extract that I've done. I've got my school, my categories, my grades, and my price. And now I want to create a query with the school and the price, and I'm going to group the schools together. So let's close that, making sure that that's highlighted. We come back to create, query wizard, still using a simple query. All right, and I'm just going to pull across the school and the price for this one. That's all I need. Let's go next. Again, I want detail because I want to see the records for everything. Next, choose your name that you want. And again, we're going to go with modify the query design and say finish. All right, so there's that over there. All right, so how do we do this? The following steps can be used. Sorry. Create a query based on the entries table and include the school and price fields. Right-click in design view on either of the fields and select the totals option. A new row with the name total appears in the design view of the query. So let's go have a look at that. And let's just use this first one. Right-click, right at the top over there. Totals. All right. Then keep the group by option for the school field and select the sum function for the price field. Run the query. Okay. So we're gonna leave this first one that we're gonna group by the school, the price. We're gonna click on the group by, select the drop down arrow, and select sum. As you can see, there are a whole lot of other options available for you over there. But we're just gonna go with sum. Let's save it and let's run it. Right, and there we go. Sum of price. So Astra, according to my table over here, Astra has 240 rands worth of exhibition product. Barberton has 1,000. Krooneville 750. Infinity has 1,700. Laratong has 1,250. And Mokwadi has 1,500. All right. And you can go and manually add them up on this side and verify. But that's the whole point of the query, is to try and save you time. So just to go back, it was a simple process of right-clicking and saying totals. As you can see, my totals are highlighted at the moment. So if I were to remove that, save and run my query again, okay, there's everything broken up individually again. So let's just go back and do it one more time. Bring back my totals, and there we go. All right. So that is using the grouping section and the sum to be able to get your totals and to group. So when you group in, make sure that you've selected the relevant field for that. I could go and I could group by category as well if I wanted to. Or I could group by grade and then just get the total on my price. Entirely up to you. If it's all the same school and you wanted to see how much each grade did, then yes, you would grade by the school. If it was, say, maybe all the same school and they had different categories, then maybe you could group by the categories if you wanted to. Okay, so there's just a couple examples for you there. Right, you can also select other functions besides sum, for example, average, min, max, and count. Now, we all know those ones. To determine the number of records in each group, you can create a query and include the same field twice in a query. For example, if you want to calculate the number of artworks in each category, the query in design view will contain two instances of the same field. For the first instance, the group by option is selected, and for the second, the count option. The result of the query then looks like this. All right, let's go and do that. Again, we're still in the visual arts. Go to create. Now, if I go to my query wizard, and I say okay, and I try and move across my category, I can't move it across again. So in this instance, the query wizard is not going to work for me. So there's got to be a different way. So again, making sure that my visual arts table is highlighted. I'm going to go to Query Design. I'm going to click on that. Now you'll see on the right hand side, it automatically brings up a thing that can add tables, links, queries, or I can view all of them. I'm going to go under my tables. I'm going to double click on my visual arts. Okay, and it's going to bring up the fields for me for my visual arts table. So just to show you again, I've got school, category, grade, price, and ID. So ID, school, category, grade, price. Now I want to bring my category in twice so that I can group by my category and I can get a count for them. So I'm going to click on category and I'm going to drag it down to my first field. I'm going to go back up, click on category again, drag it down to my second field. And that is how you get the same field in twice. Again, just right click, activate the totals. We're going to leave the first one group by categories. And the second one, we're going to go with count. We go down to count, let's save. What are we going to call this one? You're going to say visual arts category count, cat count. There we go. Right, sorry, lowercase. There we go. Cat count. And say okay. All right. And then we go to the front. Let's view it. There we go. So under my drawing, I've got 3 in my drawing category. I've got 1 in my mixed media, 4 in my painting, 2 in my sculpting. Again, if we open this up, I've got 1 mixed media. Painters, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we know that it is working properly. And you can do the rest with the others if you want to. All right, so that is how you get the same field into a query 2 or more times. If you want to bring it back, another one in, all you have to do is click on it and drag down some more. Okay. Moving along. Calculated fields in reports. In grade 11, we saw how built-in functions can be used to add summary calculations at the end or beginning of a report. In this section, we shall learn how to add calculated fields to each record in a report, as well as how to perform calculations on groups. Calculations for each record. The following is an extract of the report list of items in the database school shop. Again, I have just taken this little section over here, this extract, to be able to demonstrate. Suppose the shop manager wants to know the total value of each item in stock. To display this information, we will need an additional field for each item in the report. The additional field will contain the results of the calculation in stock times selling price. So if you have a look at this over here, this is my in stock, how many items I got in stock for each one, and the selling price of them. In a case like this, the calculated field is added in design view in the detail section of an existing report. A label containing the column heading for the new field should be added in the page header section. All right, so the page header section is, where's my reports over here? Over here, in my page header section over there. All right, so where I've got my item ID, my description, my in stock, my selling price, and my total value. It's like my headings. We are now going to add in one that says, what are we going to call this? Yeah, we'll have a look now. All right, so firstly, we need to create our report, and then we have to go to our design view. Okay, so let's go have a look at that. So here's my school shop. There it is. I've got my ID, my item ID. Now, I did not make my item ID my primary key, but if I wanted to, I could simply click on the item ID and change that to my primary key, as long as each item ID is unique. There can be no duplicates. But I'm going to change it back to the ID and leave it there. All right, and go back to the front. All right, let's close that off, making sure that the school shop table is highlighted. We're going to come to create, you come to reports, and report wizard. All right, where are we getting that information from? From School Shop. I'm going to bring all my fields across because I'm creating a report. Let's go next. All right, at the moment, we're not going to do any grouping right now. We're going to leave it exactly as is. We're going to discuss grouping later. We're going to go next. Do we want them in ascending order? No, we're not really worried about that. Not for this instance. But if you want to, you can choose ascending order by description or item ID or whichever field you want. All right, then let's go next. How do I want my table to look? Columnar. Columnar is more for the forms. Justified is just not necessary for this one at the moment. So we're going to go with tabular so that we have all our field names at the top over there with all their relevant information directly underneath that. Right, then underneath this is adjust the field width so all fields fit on a page. If you have a lot of fields, you might want to consider moving it to landscape orientation. I'm going to leave it on portrait for now. Let's go next. Give it a name. Do you want to preview it or do you want to modify it? Well, we want to modify it because we want to put in an additional field over there. So we're going to go with modify and finish and just give it a second to build it for you. And there we go. All right. So here's my page header with all my field names inside there. My details. Okay, that's information that's going to show. My page footer. My standard built-in information over there. Let's view this. Let's first save it and let's view it. All right, so this is how it currently looks. Now, obviously, you can go and edit it the way you want it. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to be focusing on editing today. Let's go back to design view as they said. All right, and we need to add in the next field. But let's create some space for this first. So we just drag that across to the right. Gives us a little bit more space over there. So column heading in page, header section, calculated field, added in detail section. All right, so they're calling this total value. So we're going to follow their example. The new field contains a temporary calculated value that not only exists in the report, that only exists in the report. The new field cannot be used again in a subsequent calculation. All right, so this is a standalone calculation, unlike in the queries that you can create a new field and a new calculated field using a previously calculated field. All right, so let's go to our report and let's go and add this in. So we need a label and a text box. So over here under my report design tab, I have my label. So let's bring this, let's click on that and then just drag. Come on. Sorry. Let me just try that again. There we go. And my text box. Okay, sorry, wrong way around. This should be down here. Text box should be down here. Let's just make this a little bit wider so I can work with this quickly. You just bring this down. Select the text box. Let's delete that. Okay, this is unbound at the moment. So we're just going to place it nicely over there. Sorry, not in the header. In the detail section. Let's just make the detail section a little bit bigger. And let's just try and get this nicely into place so it looks nice and tidy. And then over here, we're going to add in the label. Right? Label. And we're going to call this, what do they call it? Total value. Total value. All right. Let's click on that and let's just resize it a little bit so it looks a little bit tidier. And let's just expand it a little bit. All right, and then we bring this back up. While we bring this back up, well, let me quickly show you why. Because now there's all this space in between over there. All right, so we don't want to leave that down there, but we can move it down to make it easier to work. So let's just bring this back up, give it enough little space in between, And we're going to move this one back up. There's a little bit of space in between so that it's not too cramped. Let's save it. Let's first have a look at the front before we add in the calculations. Okay, that's looking good. As you can see, there's where the values are supposed to come in over there. Back in design view, let's go and put in our value now. All right, and they're saying over here equals. Now again, now you're using the equals sign over here. In the queries, you don't. Equals in stock times selling price. So let's go. Equals square brackets in stock times, in stock, close my square brackets, times open square brackets, selling price. And close the square brackets. Tab and save. And let's check in the front view. And there it is. All right. But now this is not showing in rands. And I have these blocks around it. So let's quickly go and fix that up. So let's come back to design view. Let's click on my, what do you call it? My text box. Right click. And at the bottom of there, select properties. Okay, and then it'll bring up my properties over here. And the third one from the, fourth one from the top, format. We're going to click on the drop down arrow over there. And we're going to select currency. All right, once that's done, you can close off the property sheet again. Hold down your control key and just click the total value so that you highlight both of them. And we're going to go to format. Is it page setup? Sorry, I can never remember which one it is. I think it's home. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember how to remove the boxes. There we go. Under format, shape outline, and then just say transparent. Okay. So over here, we're going to see the boxes because we need to be able to see them for placement and that. Let's save. Go back to home, go back to my report view. And there it is now. Obviously, you want to move your total value up a little bit so it's nice and centered. But there it is without the boxes around it. You got your calculated field in there. And if you were to take 15 times 49.90, you would get 748.50. All right. So that's how you can do a calculated field inside of a report. All right, let's close that off and go back to our lesson over here. So take note, a calculated field is entered in the details section as follows. Add a text box in the details section. Delete the label part. Click on the label to display it as an orange rectangle with handles, then press delete. Type in the formula equals square brackets in stock, close square brackets off, times, open square brackets, selling price, close square brackets in the text box. And that's how we get to that point over there. Right, don't forget to save. A little note on the right hand side. Remember to add also an appropriate heading in the label in the page header for a new calculated field that is added. Okay, and that's what we did over there. Next, we're going to look at calculations on groups of records. Again, I've just used this little extract over here. In module 5.1, we saw that functions that perform calculations on all the records of a report are placed in the report footer or report header. Calculations can also be done per group, and the functions for this are placed in the group footer or group header. So they're saying let's use the entries table in the database Visual Arts as an example. Now I don't have access to that full one, but I've got the Visual Arts over here. All right, let me just make sure it's the right one. That's the other one. So I'm just trying to find it quickly over here. Okay, entries. I put it under entries. There we go. So I have the ID, First name, surname, self, school, category, grade, price, whether or not they're in the exhibition. All right. The teacher wants a report of the learners and the categories they have entered for. She also wants to know how many learners there are in each category. First, create a basic report, grouping the records by category. The design view of the report should look something like this. Okay, so as we're creating this report now, we're going to automatically group it to start off with. So let's go back. Let's close off the entries. Make sure that it's highlighted. Go to create, report design. Sorry, wrong one. Report wizard. Create report wizard. We want it from the entries table. We're going to move everything across for our report. Go next. Right, and how do we want to group it? According to them, they want it grouped by category. All right, so we're going to select category and we're going to move that across. So category is first, and under each category, it will give the rest of the information over there. Go next. We're not worried about ascending, descending order. If you wanted to, you could do that by first name, surname, or school. Let's go next. And how do I want it to be? Stepped, block, outline. Let's go with stepped. And I'm going to leave this in portrait view at the moment and make sure that adjust the field with width so all fields fit on the page. Make sure that that is checked. Next, choose a name for it. I'm going to leave it as entries and I'm going to select the modify the report and then say finish. And then just wait for it. All right, so this is what it looks like at the moment. If we go to report view, you'll see there's my categories: drawing, mixed, painting, and sculpting. Obviously, we'll need to just move these things up a little bit, but for the purpose of this, you can just see that you've got your different categories over there with your different students inside there. All right. And that's how they're showing it over here as well. The only difference is that they have removed the ID. I just brought that in. Now determine the number of learners in each category as follows. Because the group's footer does not display by default, you must first display it before you can enter any calculations. Work in the group, sort, and total panel. Click on more. The panel will expand to display as follows. All right, so let's go back to my table over here. Go back to my design view. All right. Let me just find it here quickly. Is it my... No, it's not my layout. Wait, sorry. Let's just go home quickly. Design view, yeah, that's right. And then, sorry, let me just double check this quickly. Working the group, sort, and total panel. I'm just trying to find that quick. All right, so group, sort, and total panel. That is here under the report design, right in front of me the whole time. So let's click on that to activate that. Right, now I've got my group, sort, and total. Group and category with A on top, more, add a group, add a sort. So that's what we see when we get started over there. So the first thing we're going to do is click on more. The panel will expand to display as follows. With title, click to add. With a header section, without a footer section, do not keep grouped together on one page. And then there's the less. We're looking at the without a footer section. So again, let's just go to more. Follow this through step by step. And over here, without a footer section is the set piece that we're going to be working with. Click on the drop-down menu item without a footer section and change the option to with a footer section. A new footer section will now appear below the detail section in the report with the heading category footer. Text box can now be added to the footer section and the required function equals count asterisk entered in it. Do not forget to edit the accompanying label with a suitable description. Okay, so let's just go and change this first and pay attention over here. So we're going to go with a footer section. Okay, and there we go. Now I have a category footer over there. Right, tips for a text box can now be added in the footer section and the required function equals count entered. What are we counting again over here quickly? The teacher wants a report of the learners and the categories they have entered for. She also wants to know how many learners there are in each category. Right, so let me make sure that I've got my things correctly done over here. So in our category footer, we're now going to bring in a text box. Come on, sorry, label. And a text box. Sorry. Let's just work with it like that, yeah. And let's give this a name. Total per category. All right. Yeah, we're going to put in this formula equals count equals count like that. And let's just move it to somewhere nice. Let's just click outside of it. And let's move it to the left a little bit. Let's grab this one. And let's move him to the left over there. And let's see what happens. Let's just bring this up slightly. Let's save. Let's go to my report view. And let's see if I've done this correctly. And there we go. Total per category. And I have my numbers inside there. Obviously, I can go into my design view and I can get rid of the boxes. Maybe make this one a little bit smaller, something like that. Fix this up so it's a capital T. A little mistake made over there. And if I want to, I can select, let's go out that first, select both of them like that, and we can just remove the outline over there quickly, make it transparent, and remove a little bit of the space. Let's move this up. There we go. And there's some nice space in between there. All right. And go back home. And one last time, have a look at the report view. So when creating the report, we did the first grouping by category. So there's my category and there's my different groups. And then there's my totals per category. It might be easier to put it onto the right hand side so it's easier to see. And you can see all the details per category, who's inside of each one over there. All right, so that is basically my report with grouping done beforehand when creating the report, as well as adding in a function so that I could get a total per category in my report footer. All right. Again, just having a look over there in my category footer. Sorry, not my report footer, my category footer. So yes, maybe move it to that side. And that's it. All right. That is that one over there. Let's move along. Tips for planning and creating a report. Before you start to create a report, you need to ask yourself certain questions in order to plan the report properly. Does the report need to include all the records from the table or only some of the records? For example, just the grade 10 learners records. If only some of the records need to be included, a query must first be created to extract the required fields of those records only. Example, the grade 10 learners. The report is then based on this query and not on the table, which would contain all the records. So you can filter things out to get just the relevant information that you want, and then you can create a report from your query. So let me quickly show you that. So let's go with yeah, let's handle this, the animals query. Yeah, let's do that one. Let's just close that off, make sure that's highlighted. Create, report wizard. Let's move them all across and let's bring the ID back. Say we don't want that. And let's go next. Oh yeah, just make sure that you got the right query. So as you can see over here, this time it's a query and not a table. If you want to select something else, you can click on the drop down arrow over there. Let's go next. I'm not going to group it at the moment. Go next. Don't worry about ascending. Again, I'm going to keep tabular because I like the tabular look in my reports. It just keeps it nice and tidy. Next, and let's just preview it over there. Let's give it a second to build it. And there we go. Obviously, you'll go into the back end and you'll go and tidy it up, make it look nice and neat. But just wanted to show you that you can create a query, a report from a query that you've done. Okay. Where must the calculations go is the next question that you need to ask yourself. If the calculations need to be performed on or applied to all the records in the report, then they must be placed in the report footer or the report header. If the calculations need to be done per group, then they must be placed in the relevant group header or group footer. Be on the lookout for wording such as for each, example for each grade, or per, example per city, as an indication that the calculation in the relevant group footer header will be required and not in the report footer header. All right, so take note of the difference between the group footer header and the report footer header. A little note on the right hand side, calculations on the data can be added in the detail section. The report header footer or in a group header footer. However, such calculations will never be added in the page footer because it does not make sense to do calculations per printed page. Okay, so again, just look at where you do your placements for that. Alrighty, and that is calculations in Access for today.